We kick off with the banks, of course, but we've got 11 seconds, and financials were out of vogue today, and that, of course, meant that your cyclical trade was not on. Value out of favor. What was on top was big tech. NASDAQ, as we get that closing bell, and the fireworks! Check them out! What's going on at Macy's? Well done, Macy's, bringing us some little bit of excitement at that closing bell. What a day, what an excitement ahead of the celebration of the birth of the United States. We're looking at S&P 500 currently up 0.75%, 32 points higher. NASDAQ up 116 points, almost 117, 0.8% higher. Big tech, your outperformer. The Dow, your underperformer, up 0.4%, 154 points higher. That, as we saw, financials, energy, of course, it was a beaten up area. And Russell 2000 is where we saw the real laggards, though, up by more than a percentage point, Carol.
Yeah, exactly. That, what happened with the small caps, although they've been on quite a run, but just to even watch the trajectory of equities today, as Caroline, you mentioned, it was low volume, and we just saw an uptick in kind of the last hour of trading, although we finished off our highs of the session, as you mentioned, but nonetheless, S&P hitting a record for the 7th straight day. First time we've seen that since 1997, everyone.
Unbelievable, and it really is highlighting that underperformance of the Russell 2000 on a sector level. You really see that loud and clear. Let's look with some of the losers here. You see that rotation out of banks, out of energy for a radio audience.
Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet, and have a good long extended weekend. 0.7%.
And that rotation as the camera migrates northward. I hate to break it to you guys. It's big tech, it's media, it's software, it's tech, hardware, equipment.
Comment
You're up
and share.
from 1% to 1.6%. And so that really shows perhaps that maybe defensiveness, Carol, that we continue to see. I would just highlight, again, for the radio audience, when I always take a look at the losers, and there's only 3 of them, and all the losers are green on the screen, that is telling you something, Caroline, about what's going on.
Yeah, I love that you're bringing up energy as one of the worst performers, and we're getting breaking headlines coming from OPEC+. Remember, they didn't manage to get any sort of deal together in terms of where they're going to see production going for the foreseeable. OPEC+ pausing their oil talks for a second time. They're in deadlock. The UAE, in particular, slowing conversations down there. They're going to retrack, reassert themselves, reconfigure that dialogue on Monday, Carol.
And Caroline, we've seen the energy market trade on those headlines, expectations of, more supply, not supply, and we've certainly seen that play out. Taylor, though, hit it right on the money. Technology was one of the big winners in today's session. I'm just going to bring out a few of them. First up, I've got to talk about Virgin Galactic.
Yes.
Obviously a technology company. It was up 26% at its highs today, finishing up 4%. Who would go to space? Show of hands. Anybody?
Well, the Brits. We're going to be in here. Branson's going to beat Bezos.
He is, man. Those billionaires are competitive. Well, anyway, so you do have Richard
alphabet's
Branson
up, baby.
saying he's going to go to space before Jeff Bezos, and we definitely saw Virgin. Virgin, by the way, has doubled or almost doubled so far in 2021. The big tech, Taylor touched on it. Microsoft, I just want to point out, it was up about 2.2% today's session, really powering the Dow in the overall trade. Google, the same thing. Google, by the way, the best performing FANG stock in the first half of the year, and continuing to continue to trade higher. It was up almost 2% in today's trade. And I want to mention Regeneron Pharmaceuticals up 1.6%, discovering a rare genetic mutation that protects against obesity, so providing some new insights into the genetic basis of obesity. There are so many obese adults in this world, so the potential for some kind of treatment or understanding of that has a lot of market potential for that company.
Let's take a look at some of the decliners, of course, on days of record highs. Really interesting to see IBM, of course, at one point having the worst day that we've seen in a while. The president, Jim Whitehurst, stepping down. He, of course, used to run Red Hat, so that is making investors really nervous. Schwab's also taking a $200 million charge from the SEC around the probe relating to robo-advising. You're seeing Lordstown Motors drop now almost 11%. Talking about probes, Caroline, the Justice Department looking into this, and off about 5% I see on the screen, it is DD Global. China really launching an investigation. Those headlines also making investors pretty nervous, Caroline.
Yeah, interesting, DD beating up on its own just after its listing here in the United States. American depository seats on the downside. Tell you what's all beaten up for the first time this week was the US dollar. We're off by 0.5% for our radio audience. I'm looking at your global macro movers, and it was a story of dollar weakness as we got that sort of Goldilocks jobs data, as Carol was talking about. Not worried too much about the Federal Reserve having to run too fast in terms of rate hikes. The Canadian dollar is your outperformer, up 0.9% as oil catches a bid. Aussie dollar as well, well. The Kiwi, basically, it is commodity-related currency pairs that did well. The Kiwi up 9/10%. Let's go across to those commodities now, because it is a sea of green on my screen. Brent crude up 0.5%. Remember, OPEC Plus back to the drawing board, debating as to what we'll see in terms of production. Increases slowly, but that's what we're looking to get an agreement on as soon as Monday. Gas oil up more than a percentage point. Heating oil, remember, we're all, of course, also using our air conditioning as we see heat ravage not only the US, but also China. And steel up 0.6%. It was a strong day for commodities, and we also see a strong day for global bonds. Taylor, yields falling across the board, whether you're in Austria, Greece, Belgium, Switzerland, you name it, they were down.
Unbelievable. You saw, of course, the bond markets close at 2 p.m., so we can make this quick. Bonds catch a bid, yields fall today, and they fall on the week. Take a look at this. Every single day this week, you've seen the 10s fall from a 152 to a 142, 30s fall from a 215 to a 204. Carol, this is the theme of bonds catching a bid despite some of this Goldilocks scenario that we've seen today. The Fed's not going anywhere.
No, exactly. That's what that report gave them. It gave the Fed some room. They keep saying we're going to be watching this, but it gave them room. Nothing's too hot, nothing's too cold, that they can kind of continue the course. I do wonder about, though, what happens come September. Everybody keeps pointing to it, including the Labor Secretary, Marty Walsh, who caught up with our team over on TV. Here's what he had to say about watching very much fall when kids get back to school.
I think we'll see more people participating in September because school's going back to work. But again, this month, in the month of June, we saw 850,000 American workers get back into the workforce. That's a good, solid number, and we want to continue that momentum as we move forward here in the months of July and August and September.
You know, we talked with, and that obviously was the Labor Secretary, Marty Walsh. We talked with Irina Novoselsky. She runs Career Builder. She said that there are so many companies looking to hire workers. There's not a lot of applications out there. It's just interesting. We'll see if the numbers start to change come September.
And the Dow.
Yeah, we have to
But Tesla's an S&P 500, so
September in terms of the back-to-school trade.
that what matters,
also, though,
baby.
I mean, what's going to be happening is we build up towards people wanting to go out and enjoy themselves. Of course, we saw leisure, hospitality, the
Coffee,
outperform when it came to
sugar,
the jobs data.
lumber.
We're all going to be out celebrating this weekend, Shanali. It really feels as though the money is back on July the 4th, and how we're all going to be spending it.
Yeah, that money coming back might be good news. We see these record low volumes and record low, this is ultra low VIX. Going to impact those banks over there. They're going to report earnings in just a couple weeks here. Already thinking about what that might look like.
Shanali, are you glazing over the fact that
Hurricane
Caroline
Elsa
calls hamburgers
straightens.
beef patties?
Yeah,
Caroline
definitely
they're
did
called
glaze
hamburgers.
right over that fact.
I forget what's lost in translation with you guys, and I second guess myself.
Soda
And beef
pop?
patties, I've never called it a beef patty in my life in the UK. We call it hamburger, but I wondered whether you guys called it something different. Tomatoes, tomatoes.
Carol, as we push forward, of course, the all-important pops coming up.
Yeah, exactly. Alex Steele is there, Romaine Bostic. They're not here, but they've been teasing it throughout the day.
Carol's
It's
my least
incredible
favorite.
performances. It's the Boston Pops with their traditions that they normally are doing in Boston, but because of the pandemic, they've got this great celebration in Tanglewood. So catch it on Bloomberg Radio and Bloomberg TV. That is 8 o'clock on Sunday. So looking forward to that. Guys, you have a good weekend and have some beef patties.
Or non-meat,
Or
should you wish.
hamburgers.
Or burgers. All right, that'll do it for our cross-platform coverage. Beyond the Veil on Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg TV, and on YouTube. We'll see you again on Tuesday. Same time, same place. Safe holidays.